G'day Year 12 and welcome to another YouTube clip. Today we're taking a look at processes and processes of human resource management. Last lesson we were looking at influences, and this is now the new section, as we said before, processes. Now, there's 4 processes that are carried out in terms of human resource management. Processes are a set of steps or procedures that occur. Now, the 4 processes that we have are acquisition, development, maintenance, and separation. Now I'm just going to give like a band 3 overview of each of these particular processes, but better kids will see in a second the detail that you need for, say, acquisition. Acquisition equals hiring. That's that band 3 knowledge. Okay, but it's far more than that. All right, but I just want you to get an idea of what each of these are roughly about. Yeah. So acquisition, hiring. Development, training. And again, you'll lose marks if you just say development is training. It's far more complex than that, and we'll look at that in a second. Maintenance equals coin, pay, monetary, non-monetary. And the last one is separation, getting rid of the worker, sacking, retrenching the worker. All right, so in terms of the first process, acquisition. This is a stage in the human resource cycle that involves staffing, recruitment, and selection. So you need to look at those terms. When you're talking about acquisition, you're talking about staffing, you're talking about recruitment, and you're talking about selection. We'll look at what these are now, and that's what you'll write about in your essays or your short answer questions if you're asked. So acquisition involves, firstly, identify those staffing needs, staffing. This step involves looking at whether staffing needs are fully being met. And if there's some gaps, how can we fill those gaps? So let's have a look, for example, in terms of a school setting. So at the moment we're looking at next year, and we're looking at staffing and what we need to have filled. And I'm just going to make up positions, so it's definitely just random. But let's say in maths, we need to have a position filled. There's not enough teachers for next year to be able to teach the maths course. We're 1 teacher short. That's the identifying staffing needs. Okay, and you sometimes have a situation where you might have, say, maths and geography. You need half a teacher for each of those. All right, so the principal, who's the HR manager in this instance, needs to figure out, right, who do we employ? Can we employ someone who's got both those codes? Can we retrain someone? Is someone maybe in maths already got some geography codes, so they could be the person that can do both of those loads, and the new person could be solely a maths teacher? Those sort of things. You're identifying your staffing needs, seeing where there are gaps, if any, and how can you fill those gaps. Do you need to recruit, or do you need to retrain someone inside the business? Now, if more staff needs to be employed, then the next little bit, a job description needs to be written. What's a job description? Job description is a written statement describing the duties, tasks, and responsibilities associated with the job. Now, the next step, and that's why it's a process, it's a set of steps that you go through if you're in HR. So the next step is to have job specification being developed. What is a job specification? It outlines the skills, the experiences, and the qualifications needed for a particular job. After this, a remunerations figure needs to be attached. What's a remunerations figure? It's having a look at analysing what the job is worth and how much monetary, cash either like coin, and non-monetary rewards need to be linked to this. That's a remunerations package or figure. I.e., you might have a job that commands $75,000 a year, but they might be generous with super and give you 15% instead of the current 9.5%. They might also give you a company car and give you access to tickets to sporting event like the old Sharkies. Go and watch them at Shark Park. Okay, following this, we have recruitment. The next major step we see is recruitment. All right, and this is to decide whether you're going to recruit internally or externally. And there's pros and cons with both of these things. Now, internal recruitment is about finding someone else that's in a lower position, being able to do that new promoted position. I'll give you an example. Say in social science, if you have the head teacher go, or in art, the head teacher goes, wherever it may well be, any faculty. Then instead of getting someone externally to come in, which sometimes happens, and there's benefits for that, you can get somebody who's a teacher to step up and become that head teacher. That's known as internal recruitment. All right, whereas external recruitment, as I mentioned before, is the opposite of that. For a new head teacher position or a new deputy position or principal, you get somebody externally able to come into the business. Now, an advantage of internal recruitment, why would you use that? You ask yourself that question. Is that workers can feel that they can move up in the company. If it's always a situation where someone new always comes in, what's the point in staying there if you want to get promoted? You don't feel valued. So that's a downside of external recruitment, and an upside of internal recruitment is that workers feel that there is mobility, they can move up in the business. Bit of a downside is, though, that just say that there's two people that have taught for a long period of time together. They could even be mates or not. One head teacher goes, two teachers vying for that position. One gets it, one doesn't. The one who doesn't is going to be pretty jealous, pretty annoyed. Okay, and it's going to be hard for the new person to take charge when they both were once at the same level. It happens a lot, but it is something that can be a little bit difficult, especially at the start. Now, with external recruitment, an advantage is that when you come from outside, you bring a fresh approach. You've got skills, experiences that most people don't have currently in that workplace. So you can bring in that information into a particular school, which is very, very good, and that happens quite often. A disadvantage is, though, that they don't have a thing called corporate knowledge of the company. This corporate knowledge. They don't know about our school. They know about other schools, which again could be an advantage, but can also be a disadvantage. I know I've been head teacher admin, it's my third school, and it's a pain, and more than that, to know who's who in the school. You know, who are all the teachers' names, who's the head teachers, what's the discipline and welfare policy, what's this policy, that policy. They're all a little bit different, and you don't have that knowledge. It takes some time to acquire, which is a downside of external recruitment. Now, the last step here in this first stage, which is the acquisition stage, is selection. It's a screening process in terms of staff acquisition. It's where the human resource management gather information about potential employees through interviews, application forms, CVs, written tests, etc. You don't have to do all of those to see which is the most appropriate employee to be chosen, most appropriate applicant to be chosen. So through this screening process, you're selecting the actual worker that you want. Sometimes people just think selection is acquisition. But again, as I've said, it's just one step in that acquisition process. So when you talk about acquisition means hire people, that's not even a band 4 answer. But it does give you some insight into what you need to talk about. Now, the second process is development. And training is part of development, but it's one small cog in the process. Probably a larger cog, but it's one part of development. It's not the be-all and end-all. So you can't just say development equals training. That's not good enough. Development is about upskilling and developing workers' skills so that they are ready for promotion and more senior roles. Whereas training is one of the many vehicles used to develop workers, but it's just one of them. It's an important strategy because workers will retire and move on from a business. There's constant turnover, which you see with that HR effectiveness criteria. And it's wise, more than wise, it's essential to develop workers to one day fill these gaps. Now, the The key difference between training and development, kids always ask this, is that training is largely short-term, current focused, and making sure that employees have adequate current skills, whereas development is future focused, it's long-term focused, and making sure to improve the overall future skill set and knowledge of the employee with that future in mind. When someone leaves, you'll have someone there. All right, some methods of development include coaching, mentoring, counselling, role-playing, job rotation, conferences, special projects, okay, etc., etc. And some other areas of development include induction. This is when staff first begin at a business. It's usually brief, but sometimes longer. They give an overview of the business. Now, we have a head teacher teaching and learning staff at our school, and their role is this induction program. And it's extensive. It's very, very well run and very well put together. And so our new teachers that come in learn about Canleyvale, learn about classroom management, learn about accreditation process, and all the things that you would need to be an effective teacher. It's part of the development process. Now, training, as I mentioned before, refers to teaching workers the skills needed to be able to perform their role. Okay, and there's two types of training, which is part of development. They are formal, off-the-job training, and informal, on-the-job training. Degrees, diplomas are these formal, off-the-job training. Okay, and informal, on-the-job training is another example that you can use too. And the last thing we need to be aware under development are performance appraisals. This is a formal assessment of how well an employee or person is working and can be used to ascertain whether future training and development is needed. Okay, it's also linked sometimes to pay, all right, and eventually whether for some workers separation is needed, retrenchment, or need to be fired because they're not completing their job properly. All right, the third syllabus dot point of processes is maintenance. Now, maintenance provides the workers with their monetary rewards and their non-monetary rewards. It's what keeps them and maintains them in their job and makes sure they're productive, but it's the main reason why we all pretty much turn up to work, or else we do it for free. Now, a good definition of monetary rewards include these are the financial benefits that a worker will receive, an employee will receive. They include a wage or salary, commissions or bonuses, share options, super, salary packaging, etc., etc. Non-monetary rewards, as it says, there's not money involved. Okay, these are non-financial benefits that an employee will receive. A worker definitely wants monetary rewards. But if you get paid well, but everything else is just negative and you hate your job and you hate the conditions that are there, you don't think the boss values you at all, okay, then you probably won't want to work there either. All right. A business that has excellent non-monetary rewards is Google. All right. They've got lots of things there, training days, parking spaces, they've got health insurance, recreational facilities, awards and recognition, whole range of things that go with their monetary rewards as well. Now, the last part there of maintenance is intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards. Kids often say, what's an intrinsic reward? What's extrinsic? What's that mean? Intrinsic is from inside. Extrinsic is outside external. So in a school setting, I'll give you Vivo points or a merit award. That's an extrinsic reward. Yeah. If you're doing something because you enjoy the process of learning, that's an intrinsic reward. So from a worker's perspective, a workplace perspective, a challenging job, but not too challenging, just the right amount, is an intrinsic reward. You gain a sense of achievement, an intrinsic reward. Okay, good relationship with the working team that's there, with your colleagues, intrinsic reward. External rewards include income, these things that are given to you outside, not inside. So income, flexible working hours, a laptop or phone, those type of things. We're almost done, guys. You've been patient. The last one we're looking at now is separation. All right, and again, That's the getting rid of the staff. But we need far more than that, and you'll see in a second. It's the final step in the HR process, and it's the ending of an employment contract. Now, separation, most people are always thinking, boss sacks worker. Not always. Separation may come from the employee, or it may be initiated, as you would generally assume, from the employer as well. Some types of separation include voluntary or involuntary redundancy, retirement, resignation, or dismissal. We'll look at voluntary versus involuntary now. Voluntary redundancy is when you choose workers, employees choose to leave the workplace. Okay, whereas involuntary is workers, employees are forced to leave the workplace. Yeah. Now, in terms of retirement, this refers to workers leaving the workplace because they're of retirement age or getting older. They're not dismissed, nor do they receive a redundancy package because they're not made redundant. Okay, but they may receive a retirement package depending on their award and their boss. There's also resignation. This is when an employee chooses to quit the workplace. So that one there is an involuntary example. And I've had, with head teacher admin and head teacher language before, there's been workers that have chose to resign their position. They wanted a job elsewhere. They wanted to move to a different country, a different state. That's resignation. You're not sacked, you choose to go. And dismissal. This is where an employer, the boss, fires a worker. Now this is involuntary. They fire them because they're not meeting their legal obligation. They've been given the appropriate written warnings, unless it's summary dismissal, where they've been doing drugs in the workplace or something silly. You can get rid of them straight away. Okay, and but if it's not summary or instant dismissal, okay, then they need to be giving their appropriate warnings and they are dismissed. All right, just to recap again, guys, there's 4 processes, set of steps involved in the process of HR. It's acquisition, development, maintenance, and separation. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in class. Goodbye.